Cowboys Nation, what's going on? It's Alex back again, and today we've got a very important and very real conversation to dive into, because it's not just about plays, it's not just about highlights, it's not even just about wins and losses. This one is about leadership, accountability, and the tone being set inside the Dallas Cowboys locker room heading into the 2025 season, and at the center of it all is none other than wide receiver CeeDee Lamb, who continues to prove he's not only the face of the offense, but also a voice for what this team needs to become if it wants to finally break through the ceiling and chase that elusive Lombardi trophy that's been hanging over this franchise for nearly 3 decades. Now, when we talk about CeeDee Lamb, it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, the eye-popping catches, the yards after the catch, the way he slices through defenses and leaves cornerbacks frustrated. But what's been emerging more over the past year is that he's stepping into a new role, a role that Cowboys fans have been begging to see from their superstars, and that's ownership of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when I say accountability, I'm talking about the willingness to look in the mirror and say, we came up short, I came up short, here's what has to change, and here's how we're going to fix it. And CeeDee has been delivering those exact kinds of messages. This offseason, reporters who've been close to the team have made it clear that CeeDee isn't hiding from the fact that the Cowboys once again came up short in the playoffs in 2024. He's not running from questions. He's not deflecting blame. He's not throwing teammates or coaches under the bus. Instead, he's openly acknowledging that Dallas as a team did not get the job done, and that individually as a leader and as the top offensive weapon, he has to set the standard higher. That kind of talk may sound simple, but in today's NFL, where stars often retreat into clutch statements or social media posts, it's refreshing and powerful to hear one of the game's best receivers being so direct. What's fascinating about CeeDee in this moment is how it mirrors the history of this franchise. Think about the Cowboys legends of the 90s, guys like Micah, Irvin, Emmitt Smith, and Troy Aikman. They weren't shy about holding each other accountable. In fact, that was the core of their dynasty. They demanded greatness from themselves and everyone around them, and that accountability pushed them past the threshold that so many Cowboys teams since have failed to cross. And now here in 2025, we're hearing echoes of that same mentality from CeeDee Lamb, and that's what has fans buzzing, because this team has been desperate for that voice. It's not lost on anybody that Dak Prescott is still at the heart of the quarterback conversation, and yes, Dak has his share of supporters and critics, but when a player like CeeDee, who has delivered all-pro numbers back-to-back, starts saying, hey, we've got to be better across the board, it shifts the conversation from finger-pointing at one man to a collective responsibility. This is no longer just about what Dak can or can't do. It's about how the entire unit prepares, executes, and responds to adversity, and CeeDee is putting himself in that mix instead of standing off to the side during camp sessions this summer. Multiple reporters noted that CeeDee wasn't just running drills and getting his reps in, he was talking to younger receivers, he was pulling guys aside and showing them adjustments mid-route. He was vocal when mistakes were made, not in a demeaning way, but in a constructive, hey, we can't afford that in real time kind of way. That's what leaders do. They don't wait until film review. They correct things in the moment, and you can see his presence starting to ripple through the entire wide receiver room. This level of accountability is crucial because the Cowboys' offensive identity has been a hot topic heading into 2025. Last year, they were explosive at times, but inconsistent in the biggest moments, and now the front office and coaching staff have been emphasizing the need for discipline, sharper execution, and situational awareness. Those are buzzwords, but without players on the field echoing that message, they fall flat. When CeeDee embraces accountability and demands it from others, he essentially becomes the bridge between the coaching staff's message and the locker room's reality. That's where culture gets built. Another layer to this is how CeeDee's stance impacts team chemistry. Remember the offseason noise about contracts, extensions, and whether or not Dallas would be able to keep its stars together. CeeDee had every right to let the business side dominate his mindset and create tension, but instead of drama, we saw maturity. He got his deal handled, but he didn't let it define the offseason headlines. His focus stayed on what happens between the white lines, and that approach has helped settle nerves among fans who were worried about the dreaded contract distractions derailing preparation. What fans also need to recognize is how accountability is contagious. Once one star makes it a point to publicly and privately own Up to shortcomings, it sets the bar for everyone else. You can't have the number one receiver in the NFL looking himself in the mirror and then turn around as a rookie corner or a rotational lineman and say, well, it's not my fault that culture won't survive in Dallas. CeeDee's example forces everybody to check themselves. That's exactly how championship teams are built from the inside out. The NFL is brutal when it comes to narrative. Dallas has been painted as talented but soft, flashy but not gritty, capable but not clutch. If that narrative is ever going to change, it won't be because of one lucky playoff run. It will be because the core leaders on this team change the way they approach every week, every practice, every play, and accountability is the first ingredient in that recipe. CeeDee is signaling that he's ready to embrace that responsibility, and that should fire up Cowboys Nation in a big way. Let's also talk about the ripple effect this could have on the defense, because leadership and accountability don't stay on one side of the ball. When the defense sees the offense holding itself to that standard, it naturally forces them to match that energy, especially after the noise surrounding Micah Parsons' future in Dallas and the weight of expectation on this defense heading into 2025. The last thing you want is a split locker room. CeeDee's accountability can actually unify both sides because it shows that nobody is exempt from criticism or responsibility. And here's the bigger picture. CeeDee is only 25 years old, entering the prime of his career, yet he's already carrying himself like a seasoned veteran. This is the kind of maturity Cowboys fans hoped for when he was drafted in the first round, and now that it's manifesting, it changes the ceiling for this franchise, because talent alone doesn't win Super Bowls. Character and leadership push teams over the edge, and if CeeDee keeps leading by example, it could finally be the missing piece that Dallas has lacked for far too long now. Let me paint the scenario. Imagine Week 10, a tough divisional matchup against the Eagles. The Cowboys find themselves trailing early and mistakes pile up. In the past, you might have seen sideline frustration or players mentally checking out, but with CeeDee setting the tone, accountability means you don't point fingers, you don't sulk, you adjust, you rally, you fix it on the fly, and you fight until the final whistle. That's the culture shift fans have been begging to see, and it starts with moments just like that. It's worth remembering, too, that CeeDee isn't doing this for cameras. He's not putting on a show for social media. The reports about his accountability are coming from teammates, coaches, and insiders who have no reason to exaggerate his leadership, and that authenticity makes it even more impactful because Cowboys Nation can sniff out empty words. We've seen players talk a big game in the past, but the ones who back it up on and off the field are the ones who truly earn respect. So where does this leave us heading into the 2025 season? It leaves us with cautious optimism. Yes, the Cowboys still have questions on the offensive line. Yes, Dak still needs to prove he can deliver in the biggest games. Yes, the defense has to find consistency without relying solely on splash plays. But what we're seeing from CeeDee Lamb is a foundation being built from within. That foundation is accountability, and that foundation is something that has been missing in Dallas for years. Cowboys Nation, this is bigger than just headlines. This is about a culture shift that could redefine the future of the franchise, and CeeDee Lamb is putting himself at the forefront of that movement. He's not ducking responsibility, he's embracing it, and in doing so, he's challenging every single person wearing the star to do the same. And if they follow his lead, this 2025 Cowboys team might finally silence the critics and remind the NFL what happens when talent meets accountability and turns it into greatness. And so the question becomes, will this accountability translate when the lights are the brightest in January? Will it turn into execution in crunch time when the stakes are highest? That's what Cowboys Nation will be watching for, because the words are powerful, the actions even more so, but the results in those playoff moments are what will etch CeeDee Lamb's leadership into Dallas Cowboys history one way or another. The 2025 season is about to give us that answer, and it all starts with the message he's been delivering loud and clear. Accountability is not optional, it's required.